All this was piled up behind the firehouse. So I was actually used that to walk up into the window. The back window of the firehouse was probably 10 feet off the ground.
I make my way to the firehouse, and when I get to the firehouse is in complete disarray. There's actually an ambulance backed into the engine bay of the firehouse. The firehouse was completely covered in dust. There was all sorts of debris coming through the front door. There were a couple of firefighters that I recognized. Vincent Geloso was actually walking towards me as I was coming in, and he goes, "Dead man walking." He goes, "How did you survive?" I'm talking to Mike Cancel and to Dulski and to John Schroeder, and these were all guys from my firehouse, and I'm asking, "Where's Lieutenant Atlas?" And someone said, "I saw Lieutenant Atlas. He went on a ferry. He's on his way to New Jersey. I think he had a broken leg. They were taking him to a hospital." I'm like, okay. So now we're gathering this information just from hearsay.
Here on Greenwich Street, Ten House is on the far right, enveloped in smoke and dust. Firefighters reassembled into their companies as best they could. Then it was time to get back to saving lives.
As soon as you walk out the firehouse, you start going to work. You don't have to walk but 2 feet before you could start getting involved. It was all up to us to try to do what we can possibly do. And we were fighting with time. Somebody's stuck under there. How long is the man going to survive, or the woman? And then as we're going, all we wanted to do was find somebody.
And I see an ambulance on fire, and there's a hose laying on the floor, and I turn on the hose, and there's some water, and I'm thinking maybe there's someone in the back of the ambulance that was abandoned because the people had to run, and I put out the ambulance with the hose, and I look in the ambulance, there's no one in there.
Everything was on fire, everything. Beepers were going off, buzzers for the air packs were going off. Everybody's walking around like zombies. We're climbing over debris, and the sewers are flooded, and water's coming up. Now I'm in water up to my waist. Trying to walk, you can't lift your feet up. You don't know what's under you if you're gonna step into a hole and disappear. So now we're trying to shuffle our feet, come across a fireman, stuck underneath the back of a set of stairs. I says, "Oh, let's grab this piece of pipe over here. Give me a hand with this piece of pipe, we'll use it. We'll try to get it out, and we'll use this as a tool. Maybe we can pry something, use it as leverage." And working together, somebody just grabbed this guy when we got a little relief on him and pulled him out. I thought they were gonna rip his leg off, but he got out and he was alive.
But success with finding survivors was hampered by the fire that took hold in the remaining buildings of the World Trade Center. Firefighters battled to control the raging infernos that only a few hours earlier had been a place of work for 50,000 New Yorkers. The strain on Ten House firefighters was beginning to tell. Some had fathers and brothers in other companies that served New York that fateful morning.
I said, "Cap, I gotta find my brother." I said, "My brother's missing." He goes, "All right, come on." He goes, they're putting together a list of names of everybody missing over here at the command center at the station." And I look at the list, and my brother's name is on the list. There's firefighter Mike Morabito. I'm absolutely devastated, heartbroken now. My brother's dead. I love him so much. But I'm exhausted, I'm thirsty. I see this one hydrant, and I get down on my knee, and I'm taking the water from the hydrant, and I'm washing my face, and I'm just kind of taking a sip of water, and I look up, and my brother comes walking right in front of me. I'm like, oh my God, how is this even possible in all of this madness?
I'm looking down, and there's another fireman that's looking down, and we ended up literally bumping into each other. I look up, he looks up, and it's my cousin John. He was assigned to a Staten Island company, and he was there on recall. And man, it felt so good to see somebody that you knew.
It was now 2:30 in the afternoon of 9/11. Ladder 10's Dan Potter could take it no longer and asked his captain for permission to go and find his wife, Jean. She had gone to work that morning on the 81st floor of the North Tower. Dan hoped she had escaped and gone to their home in Battery Park City.
I don't have any keys on me because I just quickly changed and left everything in my locker. I was knocking on the apartment door, and with each knock, you know, I expected her to open that door up. And I just remember knocking and banging on the door, and that's when I just became overwhelmed. I said, she didn't make it out of there. I couldn't just stay there, but that's when I came down and I sat on the bench. I said to myself, she's dead. I sit down and sit and I cried.
Dan decides to try the door again, this time using his firefighter's strength.
Just as I forced the door open, the phone rings. I pick it up, it's my father, and he's crying on the other end of the phone. So I said, Dad, I said, I'm okay. I said, okay, but I can't find Jean. I don't know where Jean is. He goes, I know where she is. He says, she's at the Chinatown Firehouse.
After surviving the South Tower collapse, Jean Potter wandered the streets until she was told to wait for Dan at the Chinatown Firehouse.
I said, you got a beautiful redhead in here? To one of the guys, and there were other companies coming in, so I just happened to catch the right guy that knew where Jean was. And he says, she's right inside here in the television room. And that's when I opened up the door, I just saw her standing there.
We hugged. We were two misses hugging one another. I mean, what a blessing we were given. You know, but our hearts break for so many.
It felt so good to hug her. I was just so glad that I did not leave her a widow. And even at that, the guilt, everything it seemed involved feeling guilty that I survived.
Engine 10's Lieutenant Atlas did not report back to the firehouse that day. His wife Joanne remained home, waiting for news from the fire department.
That whole day was a blur. I think I started cooking. It was like, I just think it was like do things to keep busy because you have to keep busy. Basically, I think I was waiting by the phone for any kind of news.
By the end of the most momentous day in the history of New York's fire department, nearly 400 firefighters were reported as missing. 6 of the names were from Ten House, half the firefighters who were on duty on 9/11.
One of the worst words in the world is missing, because that's what we were dealing with at that point. Everybody was missing and nobody knew anything at that point.
The desperate search for survivors continued through the night. Engine 10's Pete D'Ancona worked ceaselessly in the most hazardous conditions.
The amount of time we were down there, I didn't see too many people coming out alive. And it really hurt.
Pete is captured here at the end of another night's search.
See this? This don't run. This color's right here don't run. That was his company over there. That's my company in front of 10 and 10.
It's very, very, very hard to keep moving forward if you're not getting anything back from it. You start to give up. After 2 or 3 days, they had set up the ladder 10 apparatus floor as a makeshift morgue. We made it a point to do what we had to do as professional as we can, to the best of our ability. I don't know anybody who didn't do it that way. We tried to give everybody as much dignity as we possibly could.
After 2 weeks, it became clear that those firefighters still missing would not be found alive. From Ten House, this included retired Captain James Corrigan and firefighter Paul Pansini, assigned to another company that day. and Lieutenant Greg Atlas.
He loved being a firefighter. They're usually the biggest characters, and well, Greg personified that too, but they love life. And, you know, one minute they could be acting like a bunch of 12-year-olds, and then the next minute they turn around and do these amazing rescues, and they put themselves on the line.
Guys from our firehouse, guys from our firehouse. The city lost 343 firefighters, some of whom I knew directly. It's hard to go someplace to try to find solace because everybody's hurting and everybody feels this loss. And so the family's fractured, the family is hurt, and it takes time to rebuild that family. It takes time to get back together. At the same time, we're dealing with this traumatic event that's right in front of our firehouse.
On October the 21st, 2001, the remains of Ladder 10's search and rescue team were found. True to the call of the 10 House firefighters, on 9/11 they had been among the first ones into the World Trade Center. And now Stephen Harrell, Sean Talon, and Jeff Olson were amongst the last out.
The firemen would, you know, they were incredible. They were always in my house. They always brought food. My house was wall-to-wall people. Whatever your family would do for you is what the firemen come and do for you. But it was a struggle. It was absolutely a struggle.
After 9/11, life, it seemed, would never be the same again for New York. But though the vast twin towers were obliterated, the firehouse that served them remained standing. 10 House and its firefighters began a new life as the focus of America's grief and pride for the fallen heroes of 9/11.
We were trying to give people hope, and a feeling of goodness is still out there among all this devastation and evil that you see. And as people are coming in, we wanted them to see, as they're coming down to the site, that there's a firehouse here, and that firehouse is still open. It's still open. We're still standing. We're still here every single day for you. We're here to protect you. We didn't leave. All the other buildings are empty. The Trade Center is gone. The streets are destroyed. The whole financial district is in turmoil, but we're still here.
This iconic building is now a working firehouse for the new World Trade Center. It is also a destination for many thousands of visitors to New York, as a living memorial to the 10 House heroes and the brotherhood of firefighters who responded to the call on 9/11.